Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Christian Brindle. Welcome back to the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, the number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business to seven figures or higher. I got another amazing guest here with me today. I got somebody who really needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. I got Josh Youngs of Medicare Peace and Mind. And Josh is, what can I say about Josh? Josh is a multiple time top producer. Josh is a sales trainer now. Josh is somebody that is, helping other agents kind of duplicate the success that he's had as an agent. Man, I mean, I probably didn't even do justice. I probably left a few things out there, but Josh, how are you doing today? Let's start off there.
I'm doing good, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, man.
Good.
Let's start off. If there's anybody that's watching this, Josh, that doesn't know your story, they don't know kind of your background, or maybe they're just kind of getting familiar with you. Let's go to the beginning, right? Like, how did you get into the industry? How'd you get in the insurance business? How did everything begin for Josh Youngs?
Well, I took a job as a secretary at an insurance agency. I didn't really know much about insurance at all at that point, but really I knew I didn't want to do manual labor, and I was looking for entry-level positions that didn't require manual labor.
Yeah.
And this would be on the heels of me working at dentist offices as a dental office manager. And then I just kind of fell into the position, I guess. Yeah. And so in the beginning, we were really mostly focused on under 65 group individual insurance. And we dabbled in Medicare once in a while. We'd blow the dust off of summary of benefits if someone asked about it or something. And then
Yeah.
Obamacare happened, and that kind of changed the trajectory of what we were doing as an agency. But
Yeah.
yeah, I took a secretary job to get into the business, and then spent 14 years at that agency. And then an FMO, I guess is what you'd call it. And yeah, I got experience every position in the restaurant. So I spent time as secretary, I spent time as a status person, I spent time as the underwriting questions person, I spent time as the life insurance quote guy, I spent time running a telemarketing center, I spent time the last 10 years or so, most of my job was recruiting, training, and helping agents succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, so you're with this, you're working with this agency, right? And you're, over the course of time of being there, you end up wearing multiple different hats in terms of like depending on the time you're doing a different kind of role. What was the point where you broke off and went off on your own as an agent?
I was kind of forced. I probably would have stayed in that environment mostly out of fear. My previous job at the dentist office, I lost because boy genius in his infinite wisdom here in my youth decided it was a good idea to write myself prescriptions. And they didn't like that, believe it or not. So I got fired from that job and I had to deal with some ramifications from that. But yeah, no, I think the opportunity to succeed in this business is unique. And I got to watch a lot of agents make a run at it. I'd probably say the most instrumental thing was that the owner of the agency sold his agency to some other people. And in that process, I got sold as an asset. And that was a wake up call for me when I read in the bill of sale my name as one of the assets of the agency. Like I didn't own myself, it felt like in that moment.
Right.
And so that very moment I founded my agency. It was this day before AEP ended in 2017. And yeah, it took me about 6 months to get to a position. I helped the new owners of who bought the agency transition, and I helped replace myself best I could. And then the rest is history, I guess I would say. I hit the field June 1st of 2018, and yeah, I've been building my agency since then.
And in a real short amount of time, I mean, you encompassed a very impressive book of business just on your own pen, right? So, you kind of hit the ground running. You started writing a lot of policies and a lot of, bringing on new clients and building your clientele. When you first started in 2018, what did that look like? Like what were you doing for leads right off the bat? Like, or were you doing anything with leads? Like, well, how were you attracting customers to you at that
I've
point?
always hated leads, but leads in the beginning were definitely a necessary part of the process because I
Yeah.
didn't have enough people to get referrals from yet. And so in the beginning, I didn't have very much money, but I had enough to do one direct mail lead drop a month in essence. Well, I had enough to do the first one, and then I wrote enough apps off each drop to perpetuate and keep the thing going. What I did then though isn't really possible anymore because the low income market's too saturated to do it that way. And
Right.
so if I had to do it over again now, it would be a completely different way I would get into the business now. Honestly, if I had to do it all over again today with today's environment, I would start in an LOA.
Yeah.
And I would start in an LOA for 18 to 24 months, long enough to build a reasonable income slash experience slash et cetera and money. You got to have enough capital to start your own agency. When I did it, you could theoretically do it with no money. And
Yeah.
now I don't know that that's possible now. I almost believe that you have to either do life insurance on the side or do something else to generate revenue because the quick buck in the Medicare business has kind of been taken away.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I mean, I think even from like for me, I started as an agent 10 years ago now. So 2014 was when I started. And, you know, even looking back probably to 2018, right, when you started writing, it's just changed so much, right? Like I think
Mhm.
regulations, trends, just kind of where we're at society wise, right? And kind of what's going on with technology and competition, everything in between. It is a very different time, right? For people to kind of come in. I feel like we're moving in a direction where I think you hit it right on the head, right? Barrier to entry is going to be probably to get linked up with an established agency, learn the ropes, um, make good money without the risk, and save money to be able to kind of go off on your own. I think you're right. I think we're going to see a lot less people be able to break in completely on their own. It's just going to be so much more challenging. It's just a different environment than where we were even 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah, even a year ago, I would say. The consumer is also different.
Yeah.
The rules are different. The consumer is different. Yeah, everything's different. But that's good. I think
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Keeps them
agree.
from getting boring.
That's for sure. So, so let's talk about some stuff going on right now, right? In our industry, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot going on right now in our industry. It's definitely not boring, that's for sure. This CMS proposed rule. What does Josh Youngs think about it? So for context, before you answer, I just want to provide it to the audience, right? So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you're in the Medicare sales game. We've kind of gotten into this place now where every year we're getting a final rule. Every year we're getting a final rule the last 3 years. This will be the third straight year we've gotten a final rule. If we get one, which is looking like we will. CMS has proposed a rule dramatically going to change, we're not sure yet, FMO compensation, marketing money, overrides, HRAs, just trying to level compensation on apps that are written. So there's still a lot of up in the air in terms of what that's actually going to look like. There's a lot of interpretations, a lot of opinions, but that's a little context on the FMO rule. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, for me, I don't know, man. It's to me, it's no different than Obamacare. To me, it's no different than the all the acts Congress has passed to mess with MedSup. The the industry is inherently going to have disruption
Yeah,
because it's a political pawn in some respects, Medicare insurance, and it's become more so the more it's become a bigger budget item, and the fact that it's the number one budget item now creates a tension that it didn't have before. And so I honestly believe it affects a new agent and it affects the smaller agent much, 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 much more. And it affects the consumer much, much, much more than it does someone like me or you or a top producer. A top producer will just pivot, adapt, and sell whatever the new thing is. Um, but the average agent who doesn't have that capability, if you cut the legs out of the incentive for someone like you and I to help somebody, I'm not going to say no one's going to do it, but that's a substantially going to decrease the amount of quality individuals out there that are willing to go through it. Because anyone who's ever built a team knows that it's not the most fun process in the world.
100%.
And
Yeah.
you go through a ton of people that waste your time and your money. I don't know what happened to the camera. I'll try to fix it. Waste your time, your money, and your energy, but they're the first ones to criticize you if things don't go well or whatever. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of headache and heartache and wallet ache from building a team that I think if you remove the financial incentive to do so, I just think it's bad for the industry. Do I think it's going to stick? No. I think the same thing that happened to last year's final rule will happen, and every other final rule that's ever happened. Lobbying will happen. Money will be thrown certain directions by whoever. I mean, there's some people with a lot of money that this would affect severely. They're not just going to sit around and go, well, I guess we're just going to have to take it on the chin. And so I anticipate change. I anticipate reform, but no different than anything else we've ever dealt with. And honestly, the average agent has no idea about marketing, money, and co-op anyway.
Yep.
The only people that know about that are people that are producing. So I don't really don't think it's a big deal. It's only a big deal to the top end, and because it's a big deal to the top end, that makes it a big deal to everybody else. And so I think something will change because it's a cash cow, and Congress now has its eye. I mean, they've already looted Social Security. They've already looted, other sectors. They can't loot the military, and so it's one of the low-lying fruit left to loot. And there's trillions of dollars at stake. Yeah. So I mean, I'm not worried personally, individually, but for the industry and for the consumer, I'm worried because if you remove the good agent, which is that's what's going to it's going to cut the knees out of the good agent, not
Hmm.
the bad agent. It's going to hurt the consumer, and if it hurts the consumer long enough, eventually it'll remove the cash. Everybody's tits going to get taken out of their mouth by the cash cow if they take the whole cow away. So yeah, I think there's been too much bad going on for too long and nobody to stop it. So they're going to do something to stop it. That's part of it is the bad actors and the complaints and the people being taken advantage of and all of that. And then the other angle of it is it's a ton of money, and the government, when they see a ton of money, they want what they call their fair share. And so they're coming for their fair share of what's really, in some respects, if you look at it, it's kind of unregulated. And I've only honestly, Kristen, been educated on the whole back end of that stuff in the last 24 months, 48 months. No, 24 months. Like 2 years is when I've really been educated on what is an override, what is marketing money, what is co-op. I thought they were all the same thing. And so to learn that they were all different pots and different things. Yeah, to me, I feel like I got to the dance late, and I only got to enjoy the fruits of that stuff for the last couple of years. But yeah, those that are worried about it, you got something else. Yeah, I would worry about something else. I would worry about the consumer changing over from baby boomer to Generation X. I would worry more about AI. I would worry about do I have a CRM in place that's doing automations and that kind of stuff to get myself ahead of the curve so that whatever changes are made, I'm ready to take advantage of them. Because like I said, for someone like you or me, I think we just pivot and do whatever the new way is.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. I agree. One thing that you said that really jumped out at me is, and I think I wanted to highlight this because I think this is such a great point, is that with more difficulty, more regulation, right, a higher barrier to entry, not lower, there becomes less agents, less good agents,
Mhm.
to be specific. We're already an underserviced niche, right? So if you make it even more difficult for good people to come into the business and it limits competition even a little bit, that's really bad for the consumer because it's underserviced as is. I can't remember who said this. I think it might have been Galen Hendricks. Just I want to give credit where credit is due, but
Hmm.
she said one time she was like, Christian Brindle has thousands of clients, Senior Security Benefits has thousands of clients, Boomer Benefits has thousands of clients. We can go years, maybe 5, 10 years, and never bump into one of each other's clients. That's how underserviced that we are, right? So like, yeah, I think that's such a great point because ultimately the person that loses the most is the consumer in all of this. When the big call to action or the battle cry that they're pushing, the reasoning and the verbiage behind the why everything is being pushed in this direction is to help the consumer experience, to help kind of the consumer be in a better place. But ultimately, the end result is that the consumer ends up losing more than anyone else, which is crazy.
Yeah, you remove their advocate in their scenario. So the agent, in my mind, the purpose of us is to serve as the advocate for the client, to play the role of protector of the client's interest, whether they're fighting up against the big evil insurance company, or they're fighting up against the big evil government, or they're
Yeah.
fighting up against the big evil Eve. I use the word evil loosely. The competition, the hospital, etc. Yeah, the good FMOs out there. There's obviously good and bad of everything, but the good FMOs out there are improving the experience for the client. They are improving the back end protections of the client. As an example, who does the client call if an agent leaves the business? Well, if it's a good FMO, there's things in place where they call the FMO.
Yeah.
Like the stuff's already in place. A bad FMO, they call the company, the carrier will roll them to a house account, and then everybody loses because now the client has to call the carrier to get service.
Yep.
And I don't know if anyone's called the carrier to get service for the client lately, but it's really it's a roulette. You're really doing luck of the draw. And I mean, if you put yourself on the other side of the fence, if you're the insurance company and you're trying to be profitable and you're doing all these things, you have to do a call center. And if you've never personally worked in a call center before, then you don't know how fun that is. And
Hmm.
so keeping people, you know what I never hear when I help somebody with their Medicare, Christian, is that somebody's been in a call center their whole career. I
Yep.
never hear somebody tell me they're retiring from MCI's call center and they've been in the call center happily for the last 40 years. No, if anyone ever tells me they were in a call center, it's like this deep, dark hallway of their life that they don't like to look at and they don't talk about
Yes. Nope.
because it's not fun. And so when you put it in those perspectives, that's what your client normally has as a resource. And for the average agent doesn't support their client, unfortunately. And so that's what the average client's used to, is dealing with the carrier. And the carrier, I think all of them try to do a good job, but at the end of it, they're there's too many clients to provide everybody individual attention unless you have a force of people like us in that equation somewhere that's offering service. And
Yep.
so, yeah, I think service is going to be the king over the next 3 to 5 years. Those who are serving their clients with service on the back end will win, and those that aren't will lose their clients.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. And I think it also transitions a little bit into another topic that I was kind of curious to get your thoughts on, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit already, and that's AI. I think there's a lot of agents that I talk to that they're, I wouldn't say the majority of agents, but there's certainly a segment of agents out there that are worried about being replaced and worried about AI. And I think I'd love to get your kind of thoughts on this, but I think you hit it right on the head just a second ago about the person that becomes irreplaceable for your client over the next 3 to 5 years, and that ultimately comes from service, is going to be the person that's not impacted by this new tech revelation we're about to see over the next 5 to 10 years, right? Like that's going to be super, super important more than ever.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think AI. I think the introduction of AI is no different than the introduction of a computer.
Yeah.
So insurance was written before computers. The introduction of computers was thought. I worked with a lot of those old school guys. In fact, there's several agents I know from the first upline I had who to this day write paper apps. Every app, period, is paper. And so I think technology is one of those things, and AI is just a branch of technology. You either use it to your advantage or it's used against you to your disadvantage. You pick.
Yeah.
So you either embrace technology and learn to use it, and it becomes an advantage for you to help lift you up and make you go faster and farther, or the competition's using it and you're not. And what I can tell you, just from because I'm one of those old school guys, if I would have implemented technology at the beginning of my 2018, if I would have brought tech with me, if I would have had a good CRM with me, if I would have had automations with me, oh my gosh, like if I got to where I got without all that stuff,
Yep.
like with all that stuff, yeah. So I mean, tech, AI, technology, etc. It's not going to replace an agent, because if they could replace an agent, they would have already done it.
That's
They've
right.
they've tried to do it several times. The consumer wants someone like us. They're doing the right thing. They want someone like us who answers the phone, who returns phone calls, who goes out of their way to do what they can to make their life better, who does appreciation event. They want someone to treat them like the golden rule, like they want to be treated. And so yeah, I think AI, you just embrace it. Honestly, if you look at it correctly, AI is nothing more than an unpaid assistant if you use it right.
Yeah.
You can really leverage AI to take away all the work you don't like to do. Like I hate writing training. I don't like structure. But if I needed to do structure, I would lean on AI to give me the framework, and then I would just go fill the blanks in. And that's why I think AI is not going to replace you. AI is a tool, no different than a hammer, no different than a nail, no different than a saw. And I could hand a hammer to 100 different people of different trainings, and some people could just simply put a nail in the wall, and some people could take that hammer and build a house with it. It just really depends on your skills of the use of the hammer. In this case, use of AI. If you use AI for the right things, which in my opinion, you should use AI to train yourself on things you don't know how to do, or to delegate. You use the three to delegate. I forget what's the other one. Delegate. What am I thinking of, Christian?
De-
Either
uh,
delegate,
Delegate, automate,
automate, or
and I can't remember the
whatever.
last
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah, that's one. But
I
you
know what
do
you're
one
talking
of
about,
those
but I
three
can't.
things with the stuff that you either don't want to do or you're not good at.
Yes.
And so if technology is not your strength, then honestly, I would use AI to teach me about how to use AI. Like literally use ChatGPT and say, okay, I have no idea how to use you. I guarantee if you just had a conversation with it, it would teach you what to do. And it wouldn't demean you while it did it. It wouldn't put you down. It wouldn't make you feel stupid. It would just robotically answer your questions. And so, yeah, AI, if it were me, the average agent has more to worry about with AI than someone who doesn't, because the average agent's the only one who is at risk of being replaced by AI. Because the AI can do everything that the average agent does, which is show up, write the app, disappear. Like
Yep.
AI can do that, but AI can't show emotion. AI can't reach out just because. AI is not going to show feelings and emotions and the stuff that humans crave. And so that's really what I would focus on if it were me, is how do I, knowing that AI is going to be a part of the game, how can I separate myself on the emotional side of things from other agents? How can I make people like me better? How can I make people endear themselves to me more? What kind of what kind of initiative can I do? Like if as an example, if I called around to 100 of my clients and 20 of them, 20% of my clients that I talked to were having a same problem. They're all having a problem with what, I don't know, whatever. Pick something. It could be something as simple as groceries. Well, you could get creative with what your initiatives are as far as your client appreciation stuff goes. And you could certainly do a client appreciation that's focused on giving out groceries. So, as an example, last year at my client appreciation events that I did, I gave out TVs and other dumb shit. And honestly, I'm not going to do that again. I had two people where the TV didn't work when they got it, and I had to deal with that bull crap. I had one guy who I gave a radio, a Bluetooth radio to, who called and complained because it didn't have a speak or a microphone, so he couldn't use it for phone calls. And so this year, instead of doing something like TVs and stuff, I was trying to think of what would impact the low income market. And I was like, well, low income people can't afford to buy their own TV. So I thought that would be impactful. But this year, I'm going to end up doing food cards and other stuff like that. That's more impactful to the current pulse of what my clients are dealing with. But yeah, I think AI, I think it's a great, honestly, it's made my life easier. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, agreed. Same with me, right? Like I think it's the thing that I like the most about AI is it can take an agent that could never, let's say, write copy to run a Facebook ad, right? Like there's how many agents just could not do that. They could just punch it into Chat GPT and it isn't going to give them better
Yeah,
copy than they could ever write on their
I'm
own,
one of
right?
those guys.
Right. Like
I'm one of
that's
those guys.
that's a super simple thing that like it can help any agent with. But I think you're spot on in terms of like the average agent is probably that risk of being replaced more than guys like you and me, and of course people that are higher up than us even. And you also mentioned, people that have been in the business a long time that are just stuck in their ways, right? They do things the way they do things, and that
Yeah.
those are the guys that said seniors wouldn't buy insurance over the phone, right?
Hmm.
And ultimately, there were people that scaled organizations 10,
Over the
15
phone,
years ago,
100%.
right,
Yeah.
on the back of over the phone when no one else was doing it.
Yeah.
Seniors weren't on social media, right? There's organizations that scaled on social media, content creation, organic advertising, everything like that. I think AI is very similar to that. Like you said, I think it's, the people that are going to use it properly and embrace it rather than be afraid of it necessarily are going to be the ones I think that come out ahead on this whole thing.
I would be exponentially more worried about the government taking my job than AI taking my job.
Yeah, me too. The CMS commissioner is crazy. But so I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit.
Hmm.
I was super curious to kind of get your thoughts on this. You're somebody that through one way or another, you've worked with a lot of different agents, right? Back in your previous role with, the agency, the FMO that you were with, and then now, right, you hold trainings for agents, you mentor agents, right? You have a plethora of different ways you're working with agents on a regular basis. I'm curious to know what are there some certain things that you've been able to see in agents where you're like, I've noticed that this is a trend of the ones that do well versus the ones that don't do well. They have this personality quirk about them. They have certain characteristics about them. What is it that you see on the ones that make it and last versus the ones that just fizzle out?
Man, that's the $1 billion question for sure. I think the hard part about it is everybody says the right things.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's ingenuine. I think everyone genuinely wants to succeed. I think everyone genuinely wants to crush it. I don't think there's anyone that's like says they want to and don't. Uh, but I think most people misjudge the amount of energy it takes to get momentum going.
Mm,
And I think probably the ones that respect momentum probably have the biggest chance of long-term success. But I would say in the beginning, the ones that I see succeed the fastest and the most are the ones that are able to be most coachable. The ones that literally just do it exactly like the ones that I've had be most successful are always the ones that don't ask, why am I doing this? Or why I don't like that. Or there's never any complaining. There's never any talking back. In fact, the only questions I ever get are clarifying. Like they want to make sure they understand the mission. And the what I would say is there are I don't know if there's a million, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different tactics and methods and things that you could do to be successful in this business. None of them work 100%.
yep.
All of them work a little bit, and it's really your ability to incorporate a blend of what does work, but also something that you like to do. So I'll give a couple of examples. I hate leads. I hate them to this day. I generate them all the time. I can work them. Okay. You hand me 100 leads, I'm going to close 50 or more. That's my mindset every time. In fact, I've gotten to my point in my career now. I don't close 70%. I think I'm losing, but leads are a necessary part of the fuel mixture for most. But for me, I've gotten away with not having to do leads. And I did that through relationship marketing. I did that through referrals. I did that through carrier reps and the relationships I built with carrier reps where they were spoon feeding me opportunity. Like if you're an agent and you're wondering where's all the leads, like the carriers have most of them. They have the biggest wallets. That's like their whole life is to generate leads and they don't have any skin in the game. Like your carrier rep, it's not like their dollar that they spent to generate the activity. It was the carrier's dollar that generated the activity. So to them, they're just looking for someone to make them look good. They're just
Yeah.
looking for someone to close. But I would say those days are probably over because even all the honey holes that I had from the carrier reps, they're pretty much either changed or gone. What I mean by that is there's no leads to be given out anymore. The competition's getting harder and harder. I guess I'd take it back. There are leads to be given out, but you've really got to be really high up in a position where you know somebody at the top. You have somebody on the inside that gives you an inside track, or you've got to be one of the top producers. But I can tell you, I mean, in my state, I'm in the top 3 or 5 with all the big carriers, and really only one of them is giving me leads. I guess 2 of them. Just one of them, they give me leads against my will. But yeah, that's a tough question for me to answer because I would answer
Yeah.
it differently for myself than I would for the average agent.
Yeah.
But
I think
so
it's fair.
so yeah, the average agent relationships are what takes you to the next level. Who you know is more important than what you know, but what you know is important too. But yeah, leverage relationships that you have. And if you don't have relationships, then I would start there. Start with going to creating relationships, whatever ways again that you like. So for me, I hate leads. And so I leaned really heavy into seminars. I leaned really heavy in seminars. Honestly, I didn't get until later in the game. If I would have had seminars and automation out the gate, I would have twice as many clients that I have. I
Yeah.
would have 5,000 clients. Easy. Easy. Not easy. Easier. I guess that's the better way to put it.
Yeah.
Technology doesn't make it easy. It just makes it easier and easier to manage more people at once. That's really all, to me, that's all tech has been because you lose a little bit of the personal touch with tech. But honestly, people don't care. I thought people cared, but they don't care. They just want the result.
Hmm.
And that's the thing too. I think self-checkout proved that. I think self-checkout proved that consumers will buy it even if you make them do the work themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a fantastic analogy, right? Like, especially you go into a grocery store now, most of them, like when I was growing up, and I'm sure you as well, like there's 15 cashiers lined up, right? You go in now, there's two, like if that. I think at the end of the day, I think consumers might have preconceived notions about something, but then again, like you said, once they've seen the result of it working the way that they want it to work and accomplishing their goal, making their lives easier to help them do something, they're going to embrace it. Just like the internet, just like social media.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so much truth in that. Yeah, there are a million ways to skin a cat, for lack of a better phrase, right? In our business. I want to be respectful of your time, right? I could keep you on here another hour or two, just and just kind of bat around, kind of conversation topics. But talk a little bit about kind of your trainings, right? And kind of what an agent can expect to learn about if they kind of got involved with one of your trainings, and where can people find more information about this kind of stuff?
Yeah. What's the best way to describe my training style? I try to give training in the way that gives agent actionable, implementable stuff versus concepts. And I'm admittedly terrible, like I said at the beginning of this somewhere, at planning stuff. And so for me, no training I've done has ever been the same. It's a new training every time. I try to always give the latest things that I'm doing. I don't hold anything back. I don't have any secrets. And main reason is it forces me to innovate. But what you expect from one of my trainings is I'm going to give you all the ingredients of what I do front to back. I would say it's probably a higher level class. I'm not to say I haven't had new agents come into it. In fact, this last one I did, I had a guy, it's where he just did his first AEP. So I think he's got 90 clients or something. But yeah, I'm where I specialize in is helping the agent who's plateaued. So you've grinded, you're in the business 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, whatever it is, and you've hit some kind of wall, whether that's 3 apps a month, 5 apps a month, 10 apps a month, 20 apps a month, you hit some wall that you can't just seem to get past. Well, I can typically take someone like that, f- figure out what you're doing, help you make some micro adjustments to what you're doing by either adding or subtracting or enhancing stuff that you're already doing. And most agents are just a few adjustments away from doubling what they're doing because there are inefficiencies and use of time and stuff like that. And so the series I did this year, I had to scale back. Last year, I did a bunch of boot camps where I went all across the country and I was doing road shows and all this other stuff. Then I had a heart attack in October, and so I kind of changed my priorities a little bit. And so this year, I promised my wife I wouldn't have the crazy travel schedule that I've had the last couple of years on the tour, so to speak. And so this year, I'm just doing one series of events, but it was designed where a 2 day training in February, a 2 day training in June, and a 2 day training in August. And in essence, between those plus little mini events in between, my goal is to give someone exactly the system that I run, down to exactly what Facebook ads I'm doing, down to exactly how I do seminars, what company I use to advertise them, what PowerPoint I use, marketing materials, all of that. So I'd say it's to somebody who's wanting to get serious about the business and really take their game to a higher level with someone that prefers to work with smaller groups of people. So my agency, I think I've got 30 agents across the country, but we did 2,900 apps last year.
Super
Um,
strong, super strong for
and
30
I
agents.
mean, most of that's coming from two or three of them. Like Tyler, if you take Tyler and I off the team, then we do a third of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd say to plug into my stuff, it's pretty easy. Just look for my Facebook posts and whatnot. Reach out to me. I do a terrible job, Christian. If I would, I try to be honest. My website for the coaching side of things, I don't really have one. I have a web. It's Medicare Machine Factory, and I have landing pages and funnel pages in my Go Guru and I'm actually using DFY. I'm using Eric Fierro's stuff for that, but they're both go high level and they're both the same thing as far as I'm concerned. Just a little bit different flavors. But yeah, I mean, reach out to me on Facebook, Medicare Machine Factory. You could Google that. Just the dangerous side of Googling Medicare Machine Factory. Recently, I had somebody buy a ticket to like the 2022 boot camp or something instead of the current one. She run the risk of getting some of my old stuff if you do it that way. But yeah, I'm just looking for people to help at this point in my career. Not in big numbers. I really like the one-on-one work probably more than I do group work. That's probably not the best business decision for me, but I'm not worried about money at this point. I'm worried about legacy. I'm worried about happiness. I'm worried about all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, whatever I can do to help, and it doesn't have to be at a charge all the time, and it doesn't mean you have to move your contracts to me. Just reach out to me. I mean, I can't think of a time where I've been like, no, I don't want to help you
Yeah.
to somebody.
If you send me a link when we're done, I'll throw it
Yeah.
down in the description on this so
Okay.
people can check
Yeah,
it out.
yeah. I'll
Um,
you can still enroll. So if you wanted to sign up for this year's courses, even though you missed the first two sessions, you'd still get the recording, get yourself caught up, and you get plugged in midstream and be able to participate the rest. So I'll send you the link for that if someone wants to participate in that. Otherwise, I'll be at Medicare Con this year. I would have been at Seven Figure Agent Summit, but it's the timing of it's on my anniversary week, and my wife. Like I said,
no,
I've been
no,
stretching that relationship a little bit lately.
understandable, understandable.
Yeah,
I mean, you were there last year, spoke on stage, did a fantastic job, and we certainly appreciated having you there. So, understandable. It's a tough time of year. June is in particular, it seems to be,
if
it's when
it's
it's
the
when everybody's
second
going
week
on
or
vacation
later,
and yeah,
count me in from then on. But yeah, if you haven't already gotten your ticket to it, you should. Because from last year, when I think back to last year, to all the events I've attended, the people that go on that stage at your event, for the most part, I can't think of any exceptions. Not all of them. Some of them I had never heard of before, but every single one of them were amazing. Every single one of them had amazing value to offer. So yeah, I mean, if you're struggling in the business, those are the kind of events you should go to. But what I would say is don't just go to the events. Go to the events and find out how to implement.
yes,
There's so many people that what I would call professional event attenders that go
yes,
to everything, which is awesome for the networking side of it,
Mhm.
maybe for the fun side of it. But what I would say is if they were really helping you all that much, you wouldn't have to keep going.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I I think it was Josh Lustig that said it, and I think he said it so well, so I'll borrow from him.
Yeah.
He always said, when you go, I heard him say once, when you go to events, you're gonna, if you're jotting down ideas, especially like a Medicare con or, our event or anything like that, you're gonna jot down ideas, you're gonna come away with like 50 or more or 100 of things you could implement and prioritize them and find like the top two or three and implement those and not worry about the rest, and I think that's great advice because if you're trying to implement 100 things, there's just no way. And you're going to be like, oh, you're going to get to the top of your list and you're going to be like, there's no way I can implement all this. I'm busy. And then the event wears off and you end up really doing nothing from what you learned.
Yeah, you've got to apply the info. And I can tell you that's why the training I did on February 10th and 11th, I just had a Zoom this morning and the people that came on, I think out of 10 that came on for this secondary session, I think only two of them had implemented anything. And
Yeah.
we're 3, 4 weeks later, and it's all I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But in reality, there's a difference between implementation and overhaul. And most agents come to a seminar or training looking for an overhaul when they really just need to make some adjustments to what they're doing, saying, and honestly, most agents, and this is my mentor told me this when I first got hired as a secretary, and when he elevated me in my first position where I was managing agents. And what he said to me was, agents are two things and two things always and forever: lazy and creatures of habit. And so if
Very
you can
true.
figure out how to be a little bit less lazy than the competition, and if you can set your habits to where you're just a little bit better than your competition, then you win. And so just remember every single agent that you're competing against is lazy and creatures of habit. So if you can figure out what their lazy creatures of habits are, you can destroy them just because you can innovate ahead of them. But yeah, Christian's the same way. I know he is. Reach out to Christian, reach out to me, reach out to anybody in the industry, Justin Thomas, and all these people, Just Lustig, there's so many names I could throw out of
Mhm.
people that I know. If you reached out to them, not only would they respond, they would respond with kindness and tact. Just don't be abusive to those kind of relationships.
Yes. That's the truth. Yeah, guys, we'll throw a link to that down in the description of the video. So if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be in the description. If you're watching on if you're listening to the audio on the podcast version, depending on the platform, it should be in the description as well. But just watch for that. We'll throw it in the description and you guys can check that out and learn kind of more about, Josh's trainings and get plugged into one as well and kind of start implementing kind of what he's done. Results speak, right? So Josh's results are fantastic, and yeah, go ahead and check those out.
Yeah, there would be an asterisk. Results may vary. I think that's what they put at the
Yes.
bottom of that.
Results aren't typical. That's my
Aren't
favorite one.
typical.
That's my
Yeah,
favorite
yeah.
one.
I think that's what I would say. My results aren't typical. But again, everyone that looks at how fast, that's what everybody always says to me. Oh, you got so many clients so fast. In reality, I probably took the slowest way to where I am of anybody that got to where I am because I spent 14 years going to school first. And so I
Yeah.
got a 14-year education before I hit the field. I promise you, if you spent 14 years in Christian's office or any other big FMO's office, I promise you at the end of that 14 years, you'd be fully qualified to do things. But yeah, I always put an asterisk on my own stuff because I didn't take the typical path. And if I'm honest, I've never been new. That's what I was telling my team recently. I don't know what it's like to be a new agent because when I hit the field, I was fully trained. Like I was as fully trained as anyone could ever be. So just give yourself some grace. If you're not succeeding as fast as maybe your neighbor or someone else that you saw on YouTube or whatever, just understand they probably either had an inside leg, inside track, or they took the longest way you've ever heard of, and you wouldn't want to go that way. So,
Yep. 100%. 100%. I think that's great advice. Josh, thank you for your time today. This was awesome. Certainly appreciate all of your time, your knowledge, your insight. We'll have to get back together and do it again soon.
always, you count me in.
Guys, if you like this video, the only way I'm going to know it is if you smash the like button, comment, subscribe. You guys know the drill. And we'll be back with you guys soon with another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. Thanks, everybody.